Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Jessica Petros, and I'm with John Burton Advocates for Youth. Today's webinar is Turning Dreams into Degrees, a new tool for counties to empower caregivers in supporting foster youth with college. Before I start, just want to go over a little bit of information about how to participate in the webinar. You'll see that today's PowerPoint actually can be downloaded from the handout section on your control panel. Right there. So you can view and print it if you'd like during the webinar. You can also submit live questions at any time during the webinar. Simply click on the questions panel, type your question, and click send. We'll have time at the end of the webinar to review the questions that are submitted for about 15 minutes. And lastly, the presentation materials and audio will be recorded and sent to all registrants. They'll also be posted on our website at jba.org under Training Archive, if you'd like to access or view them later. So here's a brief overview of our agenda today. We're going to talk about the impact and importance of engaging caregivers and share a bit about what the research says to support this work. We're also going to be joined by LA County Department of Children and Family Services to talk about their new training policy on higher education. We'll then transition to an overview of the higher education training curriculum, talk about how this was implemented, who is providing this training, and how you can access this curriculum. And then we'll talk about next steps and efforts in place to expand this work both locally and throughout the state. And lastly, we'll talk about the LA Opportunity Youth Collaborative and the Foster Youth College Advancement Project, and how this caregiver and training strategy fits within larger efforts happening in LA County to increase post-secondary attainment for foster youth. And as I mentioned before, we'll end our webinar with some dedicated time for questions and answers. We have a great group of panelists joining us today, including Aquino Boa, the LA Compact Foster Youth Manager at Unite LA. We'll also be joined by Barry Ginsburg, the Assistant Regional Administrator with the Resource Family Support and Permanency Division at LA County Department of Children and Family Services, as well as Maria Granados, the Los Angeles Regional Coordinator for Foster and Kinship Care Education at Los Angeles Mission College. And again, my name is Jessica Petros. I am the Project Manager of the LAOIC Foster Youth College Advancement Project here at John Burton Advocates for Youth. So now to start off our webinar, we will now hear from Aquino Boa from Unite LA to talk about the impact and role of the caregiver and why caregivers were intentionally engaged as a strategy to increase post-secondary attainment for foster youth.
Thank you, Jessica. And good morning, everyone. So kind of really to start this off, we wanted to have a conversation about how these strategies really affect caregiver and long-term outcomes. So we know that the college matriculation process can be a complex and arduous process. As a result, youth should begin preparing for this process as early as possible. However, it is not uncommon for foster youth to postpone college planning until they reach their senior year of high school, or to even wait until after high school graduation to begin making the college plan. This delay in planning greatly reduces the likelihood that a person will enroll in college, and when an attempt to enroll happens too late, young people have limited options related to college choice, and financial aid available is severely limited. To combat this, it is important that foster youth are engaged early and sustained conversations about college planning to build their knowledge and awareness and ensure that they are supported to complete the necessary steps to enroll in post-high school educational pathways that best fit their interests and skills. So regardless of the desired path, this type of early college planning and support should begin no later than middle school. So to provide a greater context related to kind of this population, California is home to 17,927 foster youth between the ages of 12 and 19. And for us in LA, we have 6,109 of those youth just in our county alone. And so to meet the needs of these young people, LA has a number of programs and initiatives and organizations working to improve outcomes. One of these is the LA Opportunity Youth Collaborative, which is a collective impact effort chiefly concerned with improving education and employment outcomes for young people who have experienced foster care in the region. The OYC brings together public agencies, nonprofit organizations, educational institutions, and employers to improve services and resolve system barriers that affect the ability of young people to benefit from education and employment opportunities. An outgrowth of this work within OYC is the Foster Youth College Advancement Project, which is convened by John Burton's Advocates for Youth and us at Unite LA. And it seeks to improve post-high school outcomes for current and former foster youth in the Los Angeles region. And so one of these FICAP strategies, in partnership with LA County DCFS, has been to launch a higher education training for resource families. Thank you. So that's kind of like the big kind of picture of what the population of foster youth are. So really kind of the meat of this portion is really talking about how trainings really affect caregivers. So research suggests that a caregiver's interaction with children influences cognitive and social development. In particular, the academic achievement of students is enhanced when parents take an active approach to learning. So the literature describes these two types of socialization that happen in the home. On the one side, we have cognitive socialization, which is how caregivers influence intellectual development of children. And then on the other side, we have academic socialization. And this is how caregivers affect the development of attitudes and motives necessary for learning. So too often, children who experience foster care face systemic barriers that restrict their ability to actualize their full potential. In turn, they fall behind in school, they cultivate poor attitudes, they have low expectations, and maladaptive behaviors are formed. And so a 2012 study across 5 countries found these factors contributed to poor academic over an investment in education. So a 2017 study found that training programs have the potential to impart skills that are necessary to support youth development characteristics that might offer protective effects that lead to more positive outcomes in school and in life. The guiding rationality behind this study was that if caregiver training could increase competence in areas that A, inform parenting practices associated with educational engagement, and B, help caregivers to foster the social emotional skills in youth that lead to high educational attainment and school engagement, then foster parent retention and youth educational outcomes would improve. So although the research is clear on the role of caregivers in educational outcomes, very few interventions include foster parents as advocates or leaders. Another study found that training programs have the potential to impart the skills necessary to support young people through this kind of college continuum and lead to more positive outcomes in school and life. It's important to note that research shows that enhanced training programs would not only improve educational outcomes for youth, but lead to increased foster parent retention as well, and help foster the social emotional skills in youth that lead to high educational attainment and school engagement. Next slide, please. So we know that now we've described how the literature supports kind of the role of training caregivers. I think it's also important to note how the state legislature has also rallied around this. And so recent state legislation supports the efforts of LA County to require age-specific training on higher education, and whereby it requires a portion of the annual training hours required for resource parents to maintain their approval to support the case plans, goals, and needs of children in their resource family home. And these trainings can include age-specific topics relevant to transition age youth, such as college planning and matriculation. Members of California Youth Connection with co-sponsored the bill, and it includes current and former foster youth. And they saw a lack of resource parent accountability, home instability, and estranged home dynamics due to the lack of training specifically related to youth that are in the home. Resource families have autonomy when picking and choosing training to keep their approval, and trainings are intended to be a tool to best support resource families and the youth in their home. However, when resource families attend trainings unrelated to the youth in their home, that tool is rendered meaningless. For example, if the youth in the home are adolescents, but the resource parents are participating in trainings to better work with infants, then the state and county social services aren't properly equipping foster parents to support youth who are in their home. So this new higher education training that has been implemented by LA County's DCFS is just one strategy to ensure compliance with this law, that resource families get the training and skills necessary to appropriately support the youth in their care. And so if you want to read more about that piece of legislation, it is AB 507 from Rubio. Next, Barry Ginsburg from LA's DCFS will discuss how this knowledge about kind of training and supporting caregivers is being put to practice with a new training requirement for resource parents in LA County.
Thank you, Aquino. We at DCFS are very excited about the new training requirement that we launched for resource parents on the topic of higher education. Before I share the details about what this training requirement entails, I wanted to first share about why we chose to implement this training and why this matters to DCFS. DCFS is committed to ensuring not only the safety of our youth, but also their overall well-being and self-sufficiency. We knew that youth who obtain a higher education have a greater likelihood of achieving a meaningful career and self-sufficiency. However, studies show that only 8% of foster youth achieve an AA or bachelor's degree by the age of 26. So given these low outcomes for foster youth, we were aware that more needed to be done. We also knew that there are often many adults involved in the life of a foster youth. However, resource parents have frequent and daily contact with the youth in their care. They can play a significant and meaningful role in the life of a youth in foster care and create a college-going culture in the home. In addition, as Aquino shared, the research shows the value and impact of engaging caregivers around the topic of education. Although resource parents can play a critical role in the life of a foster youth, we have found that resource parents often don't have the information and tools needed to assist youth to successfully complete college. So given the poor higher education outcomes for foster youth and the positive impact of training caregivers, we at DCFS believe that the new higher education training courses will increase the capacity of resource parents to assist the youth in their care with college planning and will ultimately improve the educational outcomes for our youth. Now let's discuss what this higher education training mandate entails. First of all, it's important to note that in 2017, the Resource Family Approval Program was implemented to establish a unified, family-friendly, and child-centered resource family approval process that replaces previous multiple processes for licensing foster family homes, approving relatives and non-relative extended family members as foster care providers, and approving families for either legal guardianship or adoption. In this new resource family approval process, all resource families are required to complete 8 hours of annual training to maintain their approval. Prior to our policy change on higher education, resource parents had the discretion to select any topics of their choosing. The green box on your screen outlines what our new policy requirement is on the topic of higher education. This new training requirement aligns with the state's written directives on resource family approval and went into effect in LA County on April 1st, 2019. The new training requirement states that DCFS resource parents who have at least one court-dependent youth in their care between 12 and 19 years of age will be required to complete one of 2 higher education courses, which will satisfy 3 of the requirements update and before completion of the second annual aid. And we should note that the reason this training was made a requirement during the second year was due to the training hours for approval. This is important to note because other counties or providers may name limitations. Okay, there we go. As previously mentioned, resource parents must complete one of two education youth in their care between 12 and 19 years of age. These courses are designed based on the grade level, 6 to 10 in their care. And Education Course 2 is for caregivers who have youth in grades 11 to 12 in their care or recent high school graduates. Maria will discuss later in the presentation what topics are covered within each course and who provides these trainings in LA County. Next slide, please. Thank you. Now that you are aware of what our new training mandate entails, here is an overview of how we implemented this policy in LA County. In launching this training, we began with initially informing our Caregiver Monitoring and Support, or CMS, children's social workers. This CSW position is new and was created in 2017 with the implementation of the Resource Family Approval process. The CMS CSW is responsible for supporting the caregivers and completing the annual updates that allow resource parents to maintain their approved status. It was important to us to ensure that our staff who work directly with the caregivers were educated and aware of this new training policy. A formal DCFS memo was sent out to all of our CMS CSWs about the new training requirement and their role in the process. We wanted to make sure that they were equipped with all of the information they needed to be able to answer any questions that resource families had and to be able to provide support. After we informed our CMS CSWs, we then sent a memo to inform all DCFS regional staff so that all offices and children's social workers were aware of this new requirement for the families they served. Lastly, we informed all eligible caregivers who had at least one court-dependent youth in their care between the ages of 12 to 19. A notice was sent in the mail to the caregivers about the new training requirement for resource families. This mailing also included an initial list of trainings that would be offered countywide during the spring and summer term. In addition, the CMS CSWs were provided a list of their families who were eligible to complete this training so that they could reinforce the importance of completing this required training. A list of families eligible for training will be provided to CMS CSWs biannually moving forward. We also designed a system and protocol to track and monitor compliance. As will be discussed in the next session, these trainings are provided in LA County by foster and kinship care educators. When a resource parent attends one of these approved trainings, they receive a certificate of completion. It is up to the resource family to maintain their certificate. The resource parent will provide a copy of the certificate to the CMS CSW at the time of their annual recertification to verify completion, along with certificates verifying completion of the remainder of the required 8 hours of annual training. Completion is then tracked within the Resource Family Tracking System, which is an internal tracking system that DCFS currently utilizes. It was created by a company called Binti. If the resource parent does not complete the required training, a corrective action plan will be implemented by the CMS CSW. This is the same process that currently exists if a caregiver does not complete the requirements for recertification. Also, in the event that a caregiver loses their certificate, the foster and kinship care educator also tracks attendance for their courses within their own internal data tracking system. They are able to provide verification and reissue a new certificate, if needed, to the resource parent to confirm their attendance in the higher education course. So now Maria Granados will now share more about fostering kinship care education, describe what content is discussed in the higher education trainings, and how the training component was implemented in LA County through FKCE.
Good morning, everyone. I am Maria Granados, the Fostering Kinship Care Education Regional Coordinator for Los Angeles. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about Fostering Kinship Care Education. The Fostering Kinship Care Education Program is a statewide program providing caregiver training to foster parents, relative and kinship caregivers, non-relative extended family members, and add to that also adoptive parents and prospective caregivers as well. The training topics align with the resource parent approval topics. Since 1984, the California Community Colleges Chancellor's Office has administered and overseen the fostering kinship care programs throughout California. Thousands of resource parents have learned to parent abused and neglected children and become trauma-informed and use trauma-informed practices taught through these workshops. Look at our next slide. The Fostering Kinship Care Program's motto is, the more we know, the more they grow, meaning the more our caregivers know, the more our children will grow. Our mission through the Fostering Kinship Care Education Program is to provide quality education and support opportunities for caregivers of children and youth in out-of-home care so that these providers may meet the educational, emotional, behavioral, and developmental needs of children and youth in care. Want to look at the next slide? The development of the Fostering Kinship Care Education Program is guided by the belief that children and youth will achieve their fullest potential when children and youth feel they belong to families that are strong, safe, and nurturing. There is consistency in care, meaning not multiple placements, but we try to have caregivers keep the children in their care. Care providers are qualified, caring, and knowledgeable. Care providers are retained. Care providers are linked to and collaborate with community support services. There is permanency that is in the best interest of the child. Hence, these guided principles are attained through the resource parent education classes offered at the community colleges. On the next slide, we're going to see a listing of those community colleges, at least those in Los Angeles. As I stated, the Fostering Kinship Care Education Program is a statewide program. There's actually 60 colleges throughout the state that provide fostering kinship care education training. In Los Angeles County, there are 17 community colleges that provide fostering kinship care education training. And we will show a listing of those right now. Eventually, they will show up. Each of the colleges that you will see listed has someone called a Fostering Kinship Care Education Instructional Specialist who is responsible for providing day-to-day implementation and education and the Fostering Kinship Care Education training program. The person usually will provide program implementation, schedule classes, oversee and provide workshops to caregivers. In the past, the Fostering Kinship Care Program has always collaborated with their counties. In Los Angeles, we have collaboratively developed the Special Care Increment Training, also known as the D&F rate training, in collaboration with Department of Children and Family Services and other agencies. We also have updated the whole foster family home training, and we have collaborated with Department of Children and Family Services on regional activities, meetings, and conferences throughout Los Angeles. Each of the FKC programs have a commitment to offer a letter of agreement to the county departments of social services that illustrate collaboration on training efforts between DSS and the college and how input on training topics is made by DCFS and caregivers alike. In Los Angeles County, the FKCE program collaboratively signed a letter of agreement between LA County Department of Children and Family Services and the 17 FKCE programs. In 2018-2019, the offering of the higher education training was included as part of the agreement in the collaborative letter of agreement and the work between LA County, DCFS, and FKCE. So why is this important? Why does higher education matter? By 2020, stats show that 65% of all jobs will require some form of higher education. So it's important to have our youth who are in care exposed to higher education early on so that they will essentially join the workforce and be able to be connected with long-term employment. Attaining higher education for foster youth also leads to increased self-sufficiency, decreased chance of homelessness, increased likelihood of achieving a meaningful career and economic independence. And that also leads to the higher likelihood of employment. This training also increases the capacity of resource parents to assist youth in their care with college planning and will improve educational outcomes for youth. Resource parents serve as guides to youth and connect them with higher ed resources. Last, this aligns with the mission of foster and kinship care education, which is to support caregivers in meeting the needs of youth in out-of-home care. So what does this training look like? Well, as was mentioned earlier, there's a Module 1. Module 1 is what we called Education Course 1, supporting foster youth through early college awareness and preparation. And really the goal here, the audience, is for caregivers who care for children or youth who are in the 6th through 10th grade. So in this course, we really focus on how to really get a college-going culture going. We explain the benefits of post-secondary education. We recognize the unique barriers foster youth face in education and the impact of trauma. So those barriers usually come into play because youth have frequent school changes, and because of everything that's going on in the youth's life. It's very difficult to focus on school sometimes when you're constantly being changed. So how do you work with a youth who has been impacted by trauma? We also talk about how to identify strategies to create a college-going culture in the home. And what that really entails is kind of exposing the youth to college early on, maybe having some college gear in the home, like maybe a UCLA poster, USC poster, having youth go to college football games, basketball games, kind of following those teams, and also setting up high academic expectations, regardless of the past. So we want to make sure that youth are really exposed to college and setting up those expectations using a trauma-informed approach. Instead of saying, if you go to college, wording things like, when you go to college. You know, that's just being part of the culture. We also describe the resources and supports that are available to help foster youth achieve their post-secondary goals. And as part of that, we utilize the, it's right in front of me, the Foster Youth Education Planning Guide. So we want to make sure that youth are following the Foster Youth Education Planning Guide. A little bit later on, Jessica's going to lead you into where you can find this material, the planning guide as well as the PowerPoints related to the training for caregivers. We also identify resources to help students explore their career interests and college pathways. So there are some websites that caregivers can go on, like Salary Surfer and different sorts of websites, and we expose the caregivers to these websites so they can work with the child and the youth in their care to show them the kinds of careers that are available out there for foster youth and sort of get them college ready early on. We also identify resources to help students explore, I already said that. We describe key educational planning milestones. And again, we use that using the college planning guide. The training we offer, again, they're 3 hours long and they're offered in English and Spanish. There's also an education course number 2. And course number 2 is really geared towards the 11th and 12th graders, those who are really ready to get into college and go to college. Education course 2 is called Supporting Successful Transition from High School to College. And again, this is for caregivers who have 11th and 12th graders or recent high school graduates. So in this curriculum, we really dive deep into the benefits of post-secondary education. We talk about different career choices, similar to what we've done early on, but we really want at this point the youth to identify what careers they are interested in. Maybe also have them take assessment to see what career best meets their personality and their strengths. We identify resources to help students and career interests and connect them to colleges and their pathways, and support services at the colleges as well. Many of the community colleges have Guardian Scholars programs. They also are referred to as KFEs. Some people call them Links, STARS, and those are all programs for former or current foster youth who are attending college. As part of that as well, we really teach our caregivers how to access financial aid resources. College is attainable, so we really talk about how do you show your youth how to fill out the financial aid. We call it the FAFSA. What other benefits are out there? There's something called the Chafee Grant. What other benefits are out there? There's scholarships. We also show them how to connect with their local ILP, independent living programs. Through the counties, former foster youth or youth who are currently in care actually receive benefits through the independent living program that help them pay for some of the college expenses. And those are some of the things that some of the material that's covered through modules 1 and modules 2. I'm going to let Jessica talk a little bit. I'm sorry, I skipped a step. So who trains, right? So now we have these 2 3-hour modules. Who are the trainers? So the instructional specialists sat together along with John Burton Foundation and LA Opportunity Youth Collaborative, and we came up with a baseline to find out who were the best trainers. Obviously, instructional specialists from the community colleges were our best choice because they're already through the Foster and Kinship Care program, but there's other folks that are also would be phenomenal trainers. Anyone who had a baseline knowledge of the college application process, financial aid, resource to support foster youth in college, and familiarity with the different types of higher education institutions in California would be great folks for training. So that might be folks you might find in your financial aid office, anyone who's working with foster youth on campus, anyone who has some sort of knowledge base that can explain the difference between community college, the UC system, the Cal State. Our preference is to have a trainer who has at minimum a bachelor's degree or demonstrated experience in assisting students and families with the college planning and application process. So how do you access the material? I'm going to let Jessica. Wow, I just really want Jessica to talk, don't I? I just want you to talk.
Almost.
I'm not going to let you talk, Jessica. Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit about what happens there. So now we have our curriculum. We have picked our trainers. So now what? Now it's time to schedule the course offerings. So our next step was I got together with the community colleges and we set up a master calendar based on input, scheduling, and delivery by each of the 17 foster and kinship care education colleges and programs in Los Angeles. So we set up a master calendar, and resource parents are able to call the individual college based on the master schedule to attend a higher ed course. At the end of the course, caregivers are given a certificate of completion. Each college inputs course information and attendance on the statewide Foster and Kinship Care Education database. The higher education schedule is placed on a Google Drive for easy access for caregivers and DCFS workers. Currently, between February 1st, 2019 through June 30th of 2019, there will be 14 courses in Module 1 offered and 15 in Module 2 throughout Los Angeles County. We're currently working on our summer schedule, and we should have that out as well, and we will be offering some courses in the summer. After that, we will be offering courses in the fall as well. With the help of our partners at DCFS, mailings have gone out, as Barry mentioned, and so caregivers have been calling the colleges to enroll in these courses. And this was done again at the local level in Los Angeles. On your screen, you'll see sort of a listing of our master calendar. Now, I'm not going to lie, it's Jessica's turn, and she's going to talk about the training material and how to access the material, the PowerPoints, and the facilitator's guide for those who are interested in training, and the different versions available, LA versus the versions available throughout California.
Thank you, Maria. So as Maria referenced, these trainings were actually developed in partnership between John Byrne Advocates for Youth, Unite LA, and FKCE. And we actually went through a rigorous process of also getting feedback from the caregivers before the curriculum was finalized. So we have also adapted these trainings to be used not only locally within LA County, but also for use throughout California. So there are now 2 versions of the curriculum that can be found on our website to use either locally in LA County or for more general use in California. The training materials include a PowerPoint, it has detailed and scripted presenter's notes, there's also a facilitator's guide, as well as supporting materials and handouts. This includes, as Maria referenced, our educational planning guide for foster youth and the financial aid guide for California foster youth. And both of these guides are also available in English and Spanish. And so we've listed on this slide the link to both the California version and the LA specific version. So they are ready for download and ready for your use. And the training materials that are available for use in LA County have also been translated into Spanish. So as you have heard, there's a lot of great work that is already in place to support our resource parents in LA County. Now I'd like to talk about what additional next steps are planned to continue to expand this training strategy, both locally and statewide. So as was shared, these courses are currently only offered at in-person trainings provided by the Foster and Kinship Care Education Program. However, we gathered feedback from caregivers who shared that they would actually be interested in the ability to attend the trainings either in person or online. Some resource parents prefer in-person trainings, while others may prefer an online option that provides more flexibility with their schedule. So given this feedback from caregivers, we at John Byrne Advocates for Youth and Unite LA are currently partnering together with Foster Parent College to convert these trainings to their online training platform. And if you're not familiar with Foster Parent College, they're actually an approved trainer that currently has a contract with CDSS to provide these trainings to caregivers throughout California. Resource parents are actually able to access these trainings at no cost through their counties. And Foster Parent College is a very experienced provider of online training for caregivers and currently has courses on over 65 different topics. However, no topics currently exist on higher education. So we're very excited to be partnering with them to convert these trainings and have them accessible to caregivers, not just in LA County, but to caregivers throughout the state of California. We're working on this right now, and we're targeted to launch these trainings on their website by summer of 2020, so stay tuned. In addition, we're also working to expand this training beyond just an online option. We're also partnering on a local level with the Department of Children and Family Services to expand this training requirement to all resource families, including those served by their contracted foster family agencies, also referred to as FFAs. So currently, DCFS is exploring how to expand this training requirement to resource parents served by their contracted foster family agencies. The goal is really that resource parents, regardless of whether they're a relative or non-relative, whether they're served by the Department of Children and Family Services or a contracted foster family agency, that they would be equipped with the same information, the same tools and training, so that they're all able to create that college-going culture in the home and successfully prepare the youth in their care for college. And lastly, we converted these curriculums to be used both locally in LA County and throughout the state of California, with the hopes that all of you on the webinar today might be interested in utilizing this training, and that other providers and child welfare agencies will utilize this training and implement a similar training requirement in their county. So while we have posted our training materials and the facilitator's guide online, if you're interested to learn more about this, or if you need additional support, we would like to know. So if you're interested in implementing this, I've put a link there to SurveyMonkey. Please submit a response to our survey to help inform us at John Burton Advocates for Youth on how we can best support your needs around any potentially additional technical assistance or training needs you might have. Their survey is very quick and it should just take a few minutes. And if you're not able to click on it right now, I'm going to repost it again at the end of the training during our question and answer section so that you can also complete it during that time. So to end out our webinar, we wanted to share about how this fits into a larger context of things happening in LA County. As mentioned earlier, the strategy to train caregivers is actually part of a larger systems change effort within LA County to increase college attainment for foster youth through the Foster Youth College Advancement Project, which, as Aquino mentioned, is an initiative of the LA Opportunity Youth Collaborative. Training caregivers is just one of the many strategies that LA County is exploring to increase post-secondary attainment. We're really using a multi-pronged approach, given how multifaceted and complex the college planning process can be and the many adults involved in the life of a foster youth. So we wanted to end today with leaving you with a few additional ideas and ways that counties can think about driving systems change in their region. So here are a few examples of things that are also happening here locally in LA County. The first is currently DCFS and probation are actually working to enhance support for youth in out-of-home care, those that are placed at foster family agencies or short-term residential treatment programs, also known as STRTPs or formerly known as group homes, through an enhanced needs and services plan, the NSP. So the Needs and Services Plan, it's essentially a case plan which drives the services and goals for the youth in their care, and it's completed by the provider. The county is working to create a much more robust and college and career section within this document to ensure that each youth receives all the necessary college planning support and completes the required college planning milestones in middle school and high school, so that they're really prepared for college and the right college pathway that best fits their interests and strengths. So reviewing documents such as these or other contracts that drive services is one way to infuse enhanced college and career readiness into the child welfare system. DCFS is also developing strategies to train and support not only caregivers, but also social workers. This is currently happening through a pilot in the Antelope Valley, which is a region of LA County that has a high population of youth in the foster care system. The ultimate goal is that both social workers and caregivers are working in alignment to support the higher educational goals of the youth in their care, and that they're both equipped with the resources and information needed in order to do this successfully. Currently, social workers, similarly to how it was with our caregivers prior to this new mandate in LA County, social workers don't receive any training on higher education. Yet they do meet monthly with the children and their families, and they also play a critical role in developing the case plan for the youth. So we're excited about the work in progress to also better support our social workers in this effort. A lot of great efforts are also happening in LA County to increase the rates of financial aid attainment for foster youth. DCFS and probation are actually partnering with our LA County Office of Education and their Foster Youth Services Coordinating Program to increase FAFSA completion rates. This is part of John Burton Advocate for Youth statewide Foster Youth FAFSA Challenge. LACO has developed a system, actually just this last year, to share FAFSA completion data directly to probation and DCFS so that all systems are able to identify and support youth who need to complete their financial aid applications. And LA County is huge. We are a vast and large county. We have over 800 high school seniors in the foster care system. So collaboration across systems is really critical. No one person can do it on their own. And LA County has already moved the needle regarding financial aid completion rates from an overall rate of 33% completion to 45% completion, which is no small task given the size and scope of LA County. The LA County Board of Supervisors has also played a role, and they have taken steps to support college attainment for foster youth in LA County. Last year, under the leadership of Supervisor Barger, the Board of Supervisors declared October Foster Youth College Awareness Month, and it was coincided with October to kick off the financial aid application period and college application period. This board motion also directs DCFS and probation to promote awareness and resources to its staff and stakeholders about the importance of college in the month of October. This is one way to engage your county and your communities in a movement or a campaign around college attainment for foster youth. In addition to all the efforts already shared about what's happening at DCFS, the DCFS director is additionally taking steps to shift the culture within his agency about the importance of college. He has done this in many ways, but one that I wanted to highlight today is that he has actually sent countywide messages to his staff about the importance of college and the vital role that child welfare can play in supporting this goal. I think these messages really help to set the tone and recognize the importance of not just child safety and permanence, but also the overall well-being and self-sufficiency of our youth. This, along with all the other strategies we referenced, are really contributing to a larger movement and initiative to improve college outcomes. Lastly, this new training requirement for caregivers also supports efforts with SB 12 implementation. So SB 12 is new legislation. It went into effect in January 2018, and it includes a provision relevant to child welfare. And it states that social workers and probation officers must identify and document a person or persons to work with youth ages 16 or older with college applications and financial aid applications. And this can also include foster youth that are attending career and technical education. So we sponsored this bill due to the fact that many foster youth just simply were not getting connected to support that was necessary to guide them through the very complex college matriculation process, leading to poor educational outcomes. So really, through this new caregiver training requirement in LA County, it really builds the capacity of caregivers to potentially be that person who can appropriately assist the youth with the college matriculation process. Training caregivers can really be one strategy for counties to successfully think about how to implement SB 12 in their region. So these are just a few ideas and examples of additional strategies that counties can utilize to increase post-secondary attainment for foster youth and help them turn their dreams into degrees. So that brings us to the end of our webinar. We're now going to transition to the question and answer portion. If you haven't yet, again, you can submit questions. Simply click on the questions panel, type in your question, and click send. I have also reposted the link to our survey. So again, if you are interested in implementing this training or policy, please complete the survey and let us know how we can best support you. And I've also listed my contact information. Feel free to email me if you have any additional questions as well. All right. So our first question, I think, would probably be best for Barry. The question is, how does the new training requirement affect the post-approval training modules that are being done by RHAS, or Relative Home Assessment Program?
Thank you for the question. This training is designed to be taken in the second year, so it does not affect the post-approval modules 1 through 6. It's after all of that is completed by the resource parents.
Great, thank you. So one of the questions was, and I can answer this, is they were wondering if this is being implemented in any other counties. So currently, LA County is the first county to implement this new training requirement for on a higher education. And as they're really, I think, innovative in being leaders in this area. But the hope is that other counties will also follow this lead and also implement this training requirement in their county. So we are hoping that others will think about this, and it is up to your county's discretion if you are interested to also implement this training in your county. We have not proposed this yet to CDSS, which was one of the questions, but I think that's definitely the direction that we want to go to think about this being not just local, but throughout the state. Our next question is from someone in Orange County. They serve foster youth in LA County and Orange County. They work at a foster family agency, an FFA, and they said currently our FFA tracks training hours for our RFA families and completes the annual RFA updates. They were asking if the FFAs should send copies of their family's training certificate to the CMS CSW. And so I think we just need a little clarification about the role of the CMS CSW and how that might relate to an FFA.
So the CMS CSW is responsible for supporting and monitoring families that are approved in LA County. So I'm unclear in this particular situation what the interaction would be between the FFA in Orange County and the CMS CSW. But the certificates are uploaded on the BINTI tracking system within LA County. So if this does happen, there does happen to be a connection with an LA County a family that's in LA County, then that is how all of the certificates for any of the annual update training, that's how that is tracked and monitored by DCFS.
Great, thank you. The next question is for Maria. The question is asking if any part of the criteria for trainers also includes them to be trauma-informed or have strength-based training.
Absolutely. We would want trainers to have background in trauma-informed care. That's why the ideal folks to train are the instructional specialists, because they tend to have that in their background. There's one of the criteria to be an instructional specialist. But as long as, you know, it's up to the college to determine who the best trainers are. So definitely we want to keep in mind someone who has been trauma-informed, had some training in trauma-informed care, definitely. And an understanding of the needs of the caregivers. And I just want to state as part of that, one of the things I left out is research shows that a consistent caring adult can make all the difference in the life of a child. So again, keep in mind that when we are training caregivers, we want to make sure we're not just providing instruction, but we're making sure that the caregivers are encouraging the children and the youth in their care to attend college.
Great, thank you. The next question is asking if these trainings are transferable towards the exposure to different options such as trade school. So just to clarify, throughout the training we talk about post-secondary education, and that includes any higher educational path, whether that's a 2-year, 4-year degree, whether that's career and technical education. So the trainings very clearly educate the caregivers about all the different pathways that are available to foster youth, including career and technical education and the benefits of career and technical education. And the messaging really is about educating the caregivers so that they're aware of these pathways and getting youth connected to the pathway that's the best fit for their interests and their strengths. So most definitely trade schools, vocational, career and technical education is included in these trainings. The next question is, and I'm not sure if it's to be Maria or Barry, I'll read it to you. Actually, no, I'll take this next one. There was a question if there's going to be an evaluation to determine the impact of the training. And actually, the answer is yes. We've already hired an external evaluator that's going to be evaluating the impact of these trainings and long-term impact with caregivers, not only on the attitudes and knowledge and beliefs that they'll receive through the training, but also looking at behaviors and how this might drive and impact long-term behavioral change with the youth in their care. So this will be starting actually this summer, and we'll be really excited to share the results of that evaluation moving forward as well. The next question is, with the new DCFS Protability Application, RFA 10, and this is a two-part question, are FFAs, are DCFS required to submit all paperwork needed to approve the family either under an FFA or DCFS? And I'm not sure if either of you might know the answer to that question.
I do know that there is, with the new written directives, Written Directive 6, there is portability is one of the components. We're still reviewing that and coming up with a protocol here in LA County. And so the specifics of that, we're not really available yet. But that is a good question to keep in mind as we're rolling this out. And I appreciate that someone brought that forward.
Thank you. The next question is if these trainings can be implemented at individual agencies or just housed at community colleges. So definitely these trainings can be facilitated not just by an FKCE provider that's housed at the community colleges, but also every county is a little bit different in how they implement their trainings, and some partner with other external agencies, or trainings are provided through FFAs. And those agencies definitely can access this training and provide it as well.
Right. However, if they are taking the training outside of FKCE, it won't be noted on the FKCE database.
Thank you. There was a question about kinship and guardian youth and wondering if they qualify for various college and university campuses. There for foster youth, both with campus support programs and also with financial aid and other benefits such as that. And it really depends on what you're looking at. Some Guardian Scholar programs, for example, will serve youth who have been in kinship and guardianship care, like KinGAP youth. They all have different criteria, so it can really vary campus to campus. Whereas the Next Step program, which is housed at some of our community colleges, is for youth who are in care at least one day after the age of 16, up until the age of 26. And the training does go over the different benefits and who qualifies for which type of program.
Although I would encourage all caregivers to attend. I think the information is helpful for all youth who in formal or formal care. I think the information definitely, I think the take-home message is to encourage youth to attend higher education.
There was a question, I believe, about how to implement this opportunity in San Joaquin and Stanislaus County to support foster youth participating in transitional housing placement. I will say this training is targeted not to be provided directly to the youth, but be provided to the adults serving the youth. And it was really designed in mind for caregivers. However, with all that being said, I think the majority of the content could also be applicable if someone wanted to use it to train the staff that's working at transitional housing placements for maybe the youth that are in older grades. So feel free to look at the training if there's components that you feel might be applicable to some of your older youth, which I know also serves these other ages.
And what some of the colleges have done is sort of they've collaborated with their Guardian Scholars, KPs, or foster youth programs. So they've provided classes, this module for the caregivers, maybe usually it's module 2, and they have a different workshop for the foster youth at the same time. So the caregivers are attending module 1 while the youth are participating in a FAFSA workshop. So it's been pretty much a win-win situation when it comes out, and a few colleges in Los Angeles have sort of done that combination model.
Great. And this question for Maria was wondering if, as you work to implement this across LA County with FKCE, if you've encountered any challenges or barriers with getting buy-in from the facilitators to implement this training?
Not to date. I mean, I think the beauty of this has been the collaboration. DCFS has sent out the letters to caregivers, so they're actually calling the colleges, and the colleges have really handpicked those who they want to train, who really kind of meet that criteria that we talked about early on, have some background in working with foster youth. So really haven't had any challenges when it comes to that.
Great, thank you. Well, I appreciate everyone for their feedback and input and questions. Again, this webinar is being recorded and will be sent out to everyone who signed up for this webinar. It'll also be posted on our website at jbait.org. And again, if you haven't yet, if you're interested in utilizing this training or implementing a similar training policy in your county, please click on the SurveyMonkey link and let us know how we can support you as we move this beyond LA County. So thank you so much, and I appreciate your time in today's webinar.